You around the neighborhood.
I was 25 when I got there. When I came home, I turned 50. I'm like, my whole life, my childbearing years was right there.
When I walked in the prison cell, I felt like I wanted to just take a sheet and just hang myself by the bars, or take a can and slice my throat.
Now, before the break, we were talking about what it's like to be an innocent person convicted and serving time in prison. Don, Gary, you guys know these stories better than anyone. How do we fix it?
Well, each of the cases that you've been talking about today, the flaws in those cases resulted from a lack of transparency in the system. So the system needs to be more transparent. We're making changes in identification procedures. In 75% of the DNA exoneration cases, there was a misidentification by someone. So under the current procedures, you got to think they're not working very well.
And similarly, just follow up on Don's point, the places that have gone to videotaped interrogations, more often than not, if not completely, the police have ultimately become supportive of it, even if there was resistance in the beginning. Pretty much everywhere you look where they've gone to that, the police and the law enforcement have become supportive.
Yeah, every police agency that has tried videotaping interrogations and confessions has become an advocate of the process and has not gone back the other way, because, you know, as a practical matter, if the confession is really voluntary and if it's there on tape, you know, the case is pretty well over from the prosecution perspective. Now that pretty well wraps things up for you. So, you know, the studies that have been done throughout the country demonstrate this time and again.
When we talk about the DNA evidence exonerating people, as you had said earlier, DNA is really just the teacher. It shows the flaws in the system.
DNA is not the solution, because, you know, there's not DNA in every case. But if you have a DNA exoneration, you know, and you know that somebody scientifically proven was wrongfully convicted, then you can go back and look and say, well, how was it that they could be convicted under these circumstances? What was the mistake that happened that, you know, we know now was a mistake that led to this conviction?
I mean, that's the problem. From day one, you get this myopia, I think, whether if it's starting with the investigators, where there's this insistence that we have the right person. And, you know, instead of looking at perhaps everything that's on the periphery of other evidence, statements that just don't match the facts of the crime as we have here, and you get locked in with this tunnel vision. And then instead of the court system perhaps finding ways to kind of slow this moving train, as we've seen here, it doesn't put up impediments at all in these cases. You know, what maybe you need to do too is take judges, prosecutors, and police and sit them down in rooms with folks like these.
Yeah, I think that's a real eye-opening experience.
I agree with him, and listen to our stories.
It's a real eye-opening experience for
I'd be willing
a lot
to
of
do that.
judges and a lot of prosecutors who, you know, are for the most part trying to do the right thing, trying to reach the right result, and, you know, not really aware of some of the defects and flaws that have led to the wrong result, sometimes in their very courtrooms.
A famous legal philosopher once said, "It's better to have a system where 100 guilty men go free than one where even a single innocent person is convicted." That sentiment was echoed by our own founding fathers when they designed this system. You know, I spent years in places just like this, talking to juries about justice, arguing for it. The very word exists in the term that defines this room: criminal justice. Even one wrongful conviction is one too many. Well, to date, 259 men and women nationwide have been exonerated through DNA evidence. That's the people we know about. And more than 10% of those wrongful convictions happen in New York State. So is this system broken? Well, as you've heard and seen over the past hour, it's perhaps not broken, but it is a system in crisis. We should be striving for the day when Frank Sterling's story is nothing but a frightening fairy tale, not a dangerous reality. And think of the collateral costs. Imagine if Mark Christie had been convicted originally rather than Frank Sterling. Then 4-year-old Kaylee Polton today would be looking forward to her last years in college instead of her parents dreading the 16th year visiting her grave. No system is perfect, but as you've seen and as you've heard over the past hour, there are small reforms that could strengthen it. Interrogations that are videotaped always. Preservation of evidence for post-conviction DNA testing. And for those wrongfully convicted, fair compensation so that those men and women are not forgotten. I'm Stone Grissom. Thanks for watching.